Hello, everyone. I'm Blair Bowman, and I'm a whisky consultant and broker, and I'm also one of Scotland Food Drink's food tourism ambassadors. Welcome to those of you who are joining your first Highlands and Islands Regional Food Groups conference panel on the topic today of food and drink tourism. And welcome back to those of you who joined us earlier for the sessions about attracting and retaining staff, funding, and collaboration. This 55-minute panel is running in parallel with today's net zero session. So if you're in the wrong place right now, there's just enough time for you to swap sessions and we won't be offended at all. All of today's conference content is being recorded and will be uploaded to HIE's YouTube channel, so you can catch up on all the sessions you miss at a later date. And HIE are going to be emailing out all the conference delegate information in a follow-up pack in about a week's time, and that's going to contain all the speaker slides, website links, and other resources that have been mentioned throughout the course of the conference today. So please just relax, enjoy this experience live, safe in the knowledge that all the details are going to be followed up by email in about a week. Now, today is about engagement, networking, and asking questions. Our three food and drink tourism panel speakers are going to be giving presentations that are lasting approximately 10 minutes each before we open the digital floor to your questions. So please note down any comments or queries or questions as you're listening along and watching, and you can pop them into the Socio Q&A box, and then I'll pose them to our panelists at just around kind of 12:30. So without further ado, I'm delighted to welcome to our screens Trevor Benson of Bannikin, Brenda Anderson of Tasting Scotland, and Ailsa Currie of Bellevue Barn. And our first speaker this afternoon is Trevor. So over to you, Trevor.
Thanks so much for the introduction, Blair. I really appreciate it. It's great to be here with all of you, albeit virtually, and knowing that it's only a matter of time before I get to visit Scotland again. It's not only my pleasure of being your first speaker on this topic, but also my honor to help frame the discussion that we'll have afterwards. Before I get into things, though, please allow me to share where my perspective is coming from. I have the privilege of managing a Canadian-based tourism development company called Bannikin Travel and Tourism. We specialize in tourism research and strategy development, integrated communications, and travel trade development. We are passionate about co-creating value in the tourism sector, and we are especially driven to support projects that live within three domains: adventure, food, and culture. Before taking over the helm of Bannikin from 2017 through 2021, I oversaw the growth and development of the Culinary Tourism Alliance's Professional Services Division. There, I scoped and managed countless food and agritourism projects at the local, regional, and national levels. And I remain heavily involved in developing food and agritourism in my current capacity. As such, I would like to acknowledge that my bias towards seeing food and drink as a key to maximizing impact and creating positive change through tourism. For the next several minutes, what I'd like to do is set up a few points, or at least considerations, for future. One, our connection to food and drink is only getting stronger. Two, food and drink have the potential to enrich every visitor experience. And three, developing food tourism is good for everyone. First, and it should come as no surprise, but our connection to and experience of food and drink is always changing. And never has this been so true than over the past couple of years. The pandemic has brought all of us, including these two maniacs, or should I say flower felons, and you must see the video, closer to our food. In the spring of 2020, right out of the gate of the pandemic, March 18th, we saw the stability of our global supply chains being called into question. While some of us were freaking out about toilet paper and hoarding whatever items were deemed to be scarce, others were starting to do things like bake bread again, planting vegetable gardens, and finding all different ways to shorten the connection and our connection to our food sources. While these seemingly micro daily shifts towards our food and drink saw local producers in many places benefiting from increased exposure and direct sales, people the world over began to yearn for a return to such things as eating at restaurants and interacting with others over food and drink. From within the industry, kind of looking from the outside, if you will, we were witnessing what we saw as a growing interest and curiosity around three things that no doubt contribute to a visitor's taste of place, pun intended. First, the peoples behind the food, the farmers, the growers, producers, makers, and creators, the cooks, the chefs, and the servers, the women, the men, the young, and the old, the peoples involved in everything that we so easily and have been taking for granted. an interest in the places where food is grown, produced, harvested, foraged, the spaces where we eat and enjoy food or not. These places and spaces include all of those natural built spaces, as well as kind of socio and cultural places where food and experience blend together. And also the processes involved in making food and drink that we love, the short and fast processes, the long and slow processes that are quick to learn and processes that take years to master. The stories about process that are kept and passed on that unlock the ways and wonders around transforming ingredients and inputs into first-time experiences and then memories and wonderful food and drink products. Combined with a pent-up demand for leisure-based travel, this has resulted in an increased appreciation for food, of course, but more importantly, foodways. Foodways are the histories, the heritages, the cultures behind the food and drink that is as much a part of a place identity, DNA, as the landscapes or other defining characteristics. Foodways answer for the visitor questions around who, what, where, when, why, and how food and drink are part of a place. And when embraced, they do this with ease and integrity. Second, let's look at food and drink from the visitor's perspective. Whether traveling for work, like this guy, who's obviously excited about the return of business travel, simply trying to find his flow at the airport, or visiting the Isle of Erskay to play football on what FIFA has recognized as one of the 8 most interesting pitches in the world, or connecting to the history and heritage of a place. And this, for example, this built heritage in Orkney by visiting places like Skara Brae or other World Heritage sites. Every visitor to Scotland is interested in making food and drink a part of their stay. This does not mean that the foodie or the gourmand does not exist, that food pornography will not still take place and shouldn't be considered, but rather that each and every visitor has the potential to both enjoy food and contribute more to the local economy through their food experiences and consumption habits. In other words, the future of food tourism is about putting food and drink into all of tourism. It's about integration and the intentional layering of taste and taste experiences into any and all visitor experiences. It's the reason why, for example, just neighboring Ireland with Fáilte Ireland last year commissioned a project that my colleague Camilo led into the enhancement of recreational trails through food and drink. In past years, we'd be looking at just attracting the foodie and really focusing on bucket list type flavor experiences. But now we want to make sure that anybody going for a hike, anybody coming for sports, for any reason, is making food and drink a meaningful part of their stay. Last, I've always said that both food tourism and food tourism development are community experiences. I also still maintain and strongly believe that food tourism development is food system development. So for accounting for the breadth and diversity of stakeholders involved in the production and servicing of visitor demands for more meaningful and more multi-sensory interactions with food and drink when they travel, there's no doubt that developing food and drink in tourism is good for everyone. Put differently, and we know this, but creating a global tourism destination and unlocking £1 billion growth opportunity is going to benefit more than just this lovely gentleman. Therefore, it is important that we ask ourselves and we constantly consider who has a stake in Scotland as a destination, and how can we work together to maximize the positive impact that food and drink in tourism. Of course, food and drink tourism, but food and drink in tourism can make on our shared environment, our society and cultures, and the economy at large. Thank you. Let's stay connected. I'm very much looking forward to the discussion to follow.
That was fantastic. Thank you very much, Trevor. That was really thought-provoking. I think that's really set the scene for the other presentations that are coming, and hopefully got the audience brains buzzing, thinking of questions. So don't forget, you can put your questions in the comment box in the Q&A. We've had John already say superb. Thank you. So thanks, John. So yeah, please put in your comments and questions in the box, and we're going to come to the kind of Q&A session together at the end of the presentations. You'll also notice there's a tab called polling. We're running some online audience polls through social throughout the conference. So we're gathering your views on various topics. And if you could vote on that before 10 to 1, and the question that we're asking in this session is, whether you think the Highlands and Islands are ready for rapid food and drink tourism growth. So I've already put in my answer, but please go and put in yours, and I'll reveal the results of our poll just before we leave this session and go back to the final 5-minute wrap up. Now, on to our next speaker, who works at the interface between the policy aspirations that Trevor has just been describing and the businesses who offer food and drink tourism experiences in Scotland. So now it's over to you, Brenda Anderson.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Blair, for that lovely introduction, and also to Trevor for your insights. I know it must be very, very early in the morning for you in Canada, but I hope you've had your breakfast. So I have 10 minutes to give you a very quick snapshot on what I believe makes a great food and drink tourism experience. And I come at this from both a participator globally, as someone who is forever choosing her destination of travel based on her stomach compass, and also as someone who has received countless numbers of feedback from clients, consumers, and customers, call them what you will, from across the world over the past 10 years, running my own food tour, travel planning, tasting event, business Tasting Scotland. So what is it in a nutshell? For me, Tasting Scotland Gourmet Journeys has always been about connecting people. And at the core, it's been about giving opportunities to bring international and domestic visitors close up to the people who are really at the very centre of our food and drink world, be those the chefs, the producers, the fishermen, the farmers. And it's really about giving these people an opportunity to really truly immerse in our culture through our food and drink. And it's also about encouraging new and lucrative opportunities for food and drink businesses who are looking to diversify into this wonderfully exciting market. So Trevor touched on people, and I couldn't agree anymore. At the end of the day, you know, how do we get this right? It's absolutely 100% about the people. And know that, you know, consumers will come at you from all sorts of different points. They will come at you wanting their basic needs to be met in terms of food and drink. They will come at you looking for something to do or something different to do. And they will also come at you from having a true active love of food. It's very much part of their lifestyle, and they will actively pursue the best possible experiences to help locals and visitors get under the skin of the real truth of Scotland. And in terms of the food tourism experiences, you know, as hosts, as businesses yourselves who are perhaps looking at beginning to venture into food tourism, what do you offer? Well, there are many who offer a tried and tested, market proven approach with a simple experience, you know, a self-drive trail or a tour, you know, being part of a self-drive trail rather, or on a tour, or everything up to once in a lifetime bespoke experiences. And in terms of numbers, well, the numbers, where do you sit? Anything from 1 to whatever you're comfortable with. And I can assure you, you know, there are literally thousands of people looking now at Scotland for this wonderful opportunity. But of course, in amongst that, where do the intermediaries come in? Well, people like myself, travel operators who, I think still Tasting Scotland is the only business in Scotland that does sort of multi-day, across Scotland destination base, but there are very many businesses who offer one-day tours or one-day trails or this kind of thing. And of course, we can offer to put out to the world these experiences that you have. And then of course, you've got the intermediaries like the regional food groups, etc., and the government at large who are putting across now this message that we're here in Scotland. We are more than whiskey. We've got some wonderful food too. And of course, when I talk about food, I'm talking about food and drink together. So what do you include? What is the content? Remembering that content essentially is king, right? So the place, massively important. You know, the story has to interlink for the best experiences, have to interlink that kind of historical and modern day influences. So how has food or drink influence life here? What food and drink ways are particular to here, i.e. your destination, and what brought you here? People generally want to hear your story. You know, it's as simple as that. In terms of place, what is the place about, and how does food and drink link in? Or how did it become the place because of food and drink? In terms of the product itself, it's a simple who, what, where, when, and how. So 3 key words: immersive, entertaining, authenticity. You know, we're looking here for the who's delivering it. The best person in the business is who should be delivering it, right? But I get that oftentimes it can't always be the farmer who started the business, who's probably the most knowledgeable, but probably has 1,001 other things to do. Or sometimes the business grows so much that actually you need a team of people to deliver a tour. Whoever the best person is, a little bit of charisma always helps, a little bit of humor definitely helps, and just someone who genuinely has a love and interest in people most certainly helps too. But what do you include? Just try and get that balance, the balance between, you know, what's too much, what's not enough, and why are you including what you're including in that? And oftentimes people get a real sort of golden nugget. They get that lovely moment where something that they've always known, that penny's drop, something they've always known, but they never understood why. Sometimes through these kind of experiences, that message can be told. Where are you delivering it? It doesn't matter whether it's a barn or a castle, to be perfectly honest, as long as it's authentic to you and what you do, it'll work. How do you deliver it? Well, 20 years in lecturing food and food history and gastronomy-based subjects, the bottom line is you have to remember that people learn in 4 very distinctively different ways. So this is not a lesson in lecturing, but this is a lesson maybe for something to take away, that people learn through visual. Some do have a very strong influence in visual. Some love to hear. It's enough just the auditory. Some like to read and write, a little bit more different on a trail or a tour, right enough, but others are kinesthetic. And for that, for those people, they really need to get in about it. They need to feel the product. They need to experience it in every single form possible, all the 5 senses, the hearing, the seeing, the trying to think of them all, but all 5 senses, the kind of see, hear, touch, smell, and taste. And that's why food and drink is so powerful. What must you share? Most certainly the planet. Reflecting current demands. What are you doing and what do you plan to do in the future? Because you better believe it that people are genuinely seeking that reassurance from your business that you're doing the right thing now and you're appreciating the impacts on the climate. So what have I done in the past? What has worked in the past? Well, this year, some of you may be familiar with Sasha Grierson. Sasha has a business. She runs alongside with her husband, Hugh, Aberdeen Angus, AA steak experience, I call it, the Aberdeen Angus steak experience. It's an experience that I've offered up until COVID time. From about the beginnings of the business, around about 2013, we started this one. It has been far and wide one of my most favourite experiences, and that of the customers too. Why is it so good? We arrive at the farm, we get a hello, a lovely welcome from Sasha. We sit round the kitchen table. She makes a cup of tea or coffee. She's got the tea bread that she's just made that was her in-laws' recipe. We chat about food. We chat about food and drink. We just chat general topical things, and then we go out on a tour of the farm. We go and we're introduced to the breed, some of the breed. We talk about the breed. We come back into the kitchen after speaking to the butcher, Moray. We look at the cuts of beef. We look at the marbling. You know, it's an integration of collaboration between myself and Sasha. I give it a little bit of history of the Aberdeen Angus beef, story, and then she cooks the steaks in front of the clients. And then we eat. And we have, you know, simple fare. It's the 4 steaks, it's some organic salad, everything that Sasha and Hugh do is organic. We sit down and then I match up some local beers as well along with it. So food, drink, and companionship, you know, and conviviality. And that's what it's all about. On the drink side, another great experience that worked really, really well. This one's down in Dumfries and Galloway, down at Newton Stewart. This is Graham Taylor, who has Hills and Harbour Gin. And again, people just loving it. You know, this is a business group, actually. They're just loving it. A day out, and they're in amongst the noble fir, because this whole story of the Hills and Harbour is integrated in there. You can see Graham talking about the actual gin itself, and the hillsides outside are covered in the noble fir tree. And then we talk about the seafood, or he talks about the seafood, and that's the kind of harbour link into Hills and Harbour Gin. And then that real kinesthetic experience where they're you know, making their own cocktails, and Graham's setting fire to the gin too. It's always a bit of fun. Whenever you can get fun, it's always good. But as promised, a little bit about working with the travel trade. How, you know, how does our year, what does our year really truly look like? Well, to be honest, we always are kind of 18 months ahead. But most certainly around about this year, if you imagine 2022, year one, February to April, we're really in amongst the trade shows, where things like traditionally Visit Scotland, trade shows across the globe, really. Many of them now, of course, virtual. By April to September of this year, thinking now for 2023, of course, but by September, April to September, we're into negotiations. We're really looking to get our product portfolio. What have you got that we can offer for you, link in with you, partner with you on? We need that definitely by month 9, by September. And then the bookings are now starting to come in. Most especially then October to April, the bookings there, 2022 straddling across into 2023, and expect a peak January to March, but most definitely the first week in January. Year in, year out, 10 years I've been at this, give or take 2 for COVID, but most definitely we have that week. The first week of January, I think, as people just get together at Christmas, don't they? They get together at New Year and they start to think, what are we doing in the summer? And then, of course, year 2. So in this case, we're looking at 2023, the delivery of these bookings. Now, that's not to say that at this moment in time, if you've got something that you want to offer for this year that you think you've missed the boat, you most definitely haven't. I get inquiries in for trips that are starting next week. I get inquiries in for trips that are looking to be planned for 2023, 2024. Anything that can extend the season, however, for me is good. So if you have anything January, February, March, October, November, December, I am definitely interested. But in saying that, I hope this has been useful. It has been a very quick snapshot. I am sure there's never been a better time to get into food tourism, or to diversify more fully if you're already in it. But if you've got anything that you would like me to work with you on through Tasting Scotland, believe me, I'm all ears. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Brenda. That was wonderful. And yeah, I definitely want to take you up on doing the steak experience. It looks, I mean, I don't think you can get more multi-sensory. You know, step out of the car and you'll be hit by the smell of the farm, and then you get the cooking and the taste, and the same, you know, same goes with the gin. I'm not so sure about a shaken martini. That's not my thing, but it still looks excellent. So I need to do that with you at some point in the future. But really wonderful. So we've got questions coming in. Please keep your questions coming in the chat box. We'll get to the questions very soon after Ailsa's presentation. And so without further ado, let's move straight on to you, Ailsa. Ailsa is going to tell us about how she's built a food and drink business from the ground up on the Isle of Arran. Over to you. You may still be muted, Ailsa. I'm not sure if you've started speaking yet.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now, crystal clear. Over to you.
Cool. So hello everybody, I'm Ailsa Currie. Thank you for having me along here today. It's very exciting. I'm in awe of the speakers that have gone before me, so I'm totally inspired and motivated by what they've already said. It all ticks my boxes, so hopefully I can can keep up with them. So what I was going to really just tell you today was a bit about ourselves, what we've done, how we've done it, and where we're sort of looking to go. So if I can just, so this is us. This is Team Currie. So we're at Bellevue Farm, and then that is on the west coast of Arran. So we look out over the Kilbrannan Sound onto the Mull of Kintyre. So there's myself, there's my husband, Daddy Donald Currie, and then there's my son, young Donald Currie. We call him Wee Donald. So he is the 7th generation of the Currie family that have farmed at Blackwaterfoot and Arran. There's also my younger son, Andrew. So Andrew's 14, Donald's 17. So we are a beef, sheep and arable farm. We have 2 holiday cottages, and about 5 years ago, we started doing farm tours. So at that stage, my boys were getting a wee bit older. I was looking for something different to do, and I did the Rural Leadership course. So that is a programme run by Scottish Enterprise, which is a 1-year course. And I came out of that totally motivated and inspired, wanted to achieve something. And that was, I've always had a bee in my bonnet about bringing the public onto the farm, but I'd never actually had the guts to do anything about it. So that year we opened our farm up for Open Farm Sunday, which for anybody that doesn't know is a countrywide organisation that they arrange a day once a year when farms open their doors and bring the public onto the farm. So that day was a great success. Everybody really loved it. And I kept getting people coming to me after it, asking if they could come. They'd missed it, could they come? So with the success of that, I decided that I was going to try and actually give it a wee shot, see if we could make something of it. So we got flyers made up, advertising farm tours a couple of days a week. We put them onto the ferry, put them around some of the hotels. And from there, that is really how our farm tours grew. So it just every year sort of mushroomed, and then we applied for leader funding to put up a custom built shed. I was aware when we did our open days, we put lots of information up. The public loved seeing the information, but we basically had to take it down the next day because we needed the shed for something else. So we got our leader funding for our new shed, and that was just exactly when COVID hit. So COVID basically saw our new singing and dancing shed in a pile in the car park. We kept walking past and looking at it and thinking, what on earth have we done? But COVID for us was a good time. It, obviously was very quiet. It gave us the time to think, to prepare, to organise. And that was also the time that I became involved with the Scottish Agri-Tourism Network. So I got to know Caroline Miller. We did virtual lambing videos, which sort of grew. I then sat in weekly support Zooms. Before that, I had lots of different ideas about things. But I didn't realise there was lots of other people in the country doing the same thing. So by joining the Agri-Tourism Network, it gave me some great support, people to bounce ideas off, people that had different ideas, and just a bit of chat and backup. So that was something that really grew amazingly during lockdown. And I've actually just included the 2 logos down the bottom here. So we have the Scottish Agri-Tourism, which is a sort of business to business side of the agri-tourism, and we've also got the Go Rural logo, which is the sort of customer facing side of agri-tourism. And from there I became involved with the Monitor Farm meetings and community groups. So as part of that, there's a support group for me. So whenever I have any questions, worries, things that I'm not sure about, I can basically feed into these people and get feedback from people that are maybe doing it already, people that have made mistakes, and they can basically explain things to me so that I'm not making the same mistakes. So this group has been really invaluable to me with my, with how we've changed the business. So during lockdown, what we did, we upgraded our holiday cottages. So there's work in progress there. We also put in new booking systems. So we put in an online booking system for the holiday cottages, and we put in an online booking system for the farm tours. Before that, it was getting to the stage I was getting emails, texts, messages, phone calls from people wanting to book. I was trying to take money. It was just getting too much. So the booking system basically just does all that for me. I get a printout, who's coming on a tour, and we just have it arranged for them. Also during lockdown, I did my food hygiene training. I was keen to be able to sell to visitors our own produce. I was aware there's a lot of rules and regulations. It was a bit of peace time, and that was the time that I used to do training for that as well. So this is our barn. We call it Bellevue Barn. So it opened in June last year. So you can see there's lots of bits and bobs to it. We've got kids play, we've got little animals outside, we've got a garden there, there's old tractors. Inside, what do we have? We've got some animals. You can feed the rabbits, you can see different baby animals. We've got machines inside, lots of dad's contracting equipment. People can get up close, really have a look and see what it's all about, and that is explained in the shed. We've got a wee kids play area where kids can see some of the things close up and touch them and explain things to them. We've got picnic tables, we do teas and coffees, and we sell our own lamb, pork, goat meat, and we sell our own eggs in there as well. So that's the barn. So what we offer, so really we started off with our farm tours, and that is what we do offer. So these are guided. Now we meet up in the barn, we go around the yard, and then we come back, and kids can take as long as they like, or families can take as long as they like in the barn with a coffee, tea, etc. So I basically take people round, explain that I try to make it hands-on and fun. And everybody likes to be able to collect the eggs, feed the animals. I try and explain to people about, looking after animals, the different seasons involved in farming. And I try and just explain to them about our lifestyle, what's involved, tell them the silly stories about the ridiculous day that the cows get out during the night and we were chasing them around the fields in our jammies in the middle of the night. All these kinds of things to try and make it real, make it fun, make it authentic, and that people feel comfortable and happy when they can see the real thing. I don't want what we are doing to be pretend or artificial in any way. I want people to see the real thing. And what we're also trying to also explain in the farm tour is, the farm to fork story, and how on Arran all the little food systems all fit together. So be it, we have our calf that we bottle feed, and we can explain that there's one dairy farm and that's at the end of the road, that's where the calf came from, and explain where the milk goes in Arran. So it gives us a chance to tell all these stories. We started doing farm experiences last year because we kind of identified that not everybody wants to be marched around the farm. If you've got a 2-year-old, you maybe just want to come, have a coffee, absorb the atmosphere, relax, see some animals, and just have a relaxing time. So they really get to use the shed. Again, that is booked, but they proved to be very popular last year. We also have a toddler group, so that's locals that come. We do that monthly. That is wild and crazy. I can only describe it as wild, but it's great fun. And so every month, all the local kids come, and I'm keen, I feel it very strongly that, children need to have the chance to grow with the farm, see the animals and understand how the farm and food all fit together. And it's a duty that I think I have to give the kids that we have the chance to do that. So that's the toddlers, and from that has really grown the birthday parties. So all these wee guys, you know, wanted to have their birthday parties on the farm because they have such fun. So the birthday parties have grown from there. We have we've had a couple of meetings, so it's fitted well with COVID because it's a very airy shed, lots of room. So we've had a couple of different farmers meetings, etc. in there. We do teas and coffees, and we also sell our own home breed pork, lamb, goat meat and eggs. So what we also did this year, because I'm keen to sort of pull the farming and food together, we had 2 farmers markets. So we had one farmers market in September and we had one in December. So I worked with Cameron from Arran's Food Journey and Jess from Arran Eco Savvy. So the 3 of us sort of worked together as a team to get this going. And they were both very, very successful days. Incredible turnout of people. I think the first one had 16 stalls. The Christmas one had 20 stalls. So what we're really trying to do, again, it's not just about selling produce, it's about people coming and having a great experience. So, you know, the first one, they were allowed to go and see some of the animals as well, heard wee stories about the animals. Second one, Santa Claus came, the brass band came, you know, there was eating stalls. So it's a fun, happening kind of experience for everybody, something that they'll remember. So yeah, so it was a great day. So hopefully we'll be able to run more of them in the future. So where are we going sort of from here? So I, like Blair, I'm the food tourism ambassador for Ayrshire and Arran, and I'm also the Scottish agri-tourism destination leader for Ayrshire and Arran. So these are roles I take very, very seriously, and I'm keen to support the industry and everybody as we kind of move out of COVID. It's obviously been a very stressful time for a lot of people, but out there are positives and there are lots of new exciting opportunities if we can keep things moving forward as we go ahead. So these are things that, you know, roles that I take very seriously moving forward. For the business, I'm keen now to, I think we're ready to work with the travel trade, and I'm keen to pull together tours with eating experiences, and sort of like, you know, what Brenda said, there is a demand there for people who want to have that full experience. And I think, you know, it would be great for our visitors to be able to have that. I'm also keen to have cookery demonstrations using a lot of local produce. I think there is an interest for that. And I think, you know, where we're at just now, there's an interest from people to enjoy and use cookery as a sort of relaxation process. So I'm keen to host them in the time going forward. We're also looking at the option of having barbecues at night in the shed, using our own produce, where visitors can, you know, have their steak, have their burger, glass of wine, sit and look out the views, just relax and have a quality night. So that's the areas that we think are potential going forward. And I think that was really all I had to say, other than just if anybody's got any questions or would like to get in touch with me at all, please definitely give me a shout. I'd be delighted to hear from you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ailsa. I mean, birthday parties and barbecues on a farm, I mean, what more can you ask for? I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. We've had some great discussions and questions coming in during that just now. So actually, just to keep it on that theme, so we've got kind of 15 minutes now of Q&A. Please, you know, keep your questions coming in the chat. All the slides will be sent over in about a week, so you don't need to worry about that. So please keep the questions coming in. I'm going to start kind of fielding some, but to keep it on that theme, we've had an excellent question from Rosie for you, Ailsa, which is, do you think that the guests who you have on the farm know and understand farming and food and drink production in Scotland, or have you been surprised at the kind of disconnect sometimes from some guests? I mean, there's definitely stories I've heard in the media about kids who don't realise that milk comes from a cow. You know, have you experienced that kind of stuff with some of your guests?
Well, yes, I have. But what I would probably take that one step further and say I get lots of families come and do a farm tour, and that the parents think that they're doing a good thing bringing their children onto the farm. And once you've done the tour and explained, you know, we talk about silage making and about, you know, doing rations for cattle, etc. And it's the parents that actually come away saying, goodness me, I didn't realise that farming, there was so much to it. I didn't realise that was involved. So it's not just the kids, it's the parents.
That's really interesting. And we'll have some great discussions going on in the chat about the semantics of sustainability, which is an interesting point about sustainable meaning, you know, is a business viable? Is it sustainable? Or is it eco and green? So thanks for John's questions there. Trevor, I've got a question for you that's come in, which was back to kind of your presentation at the start. Do you have any surprising examples of how food and drink in tourism has worked exceptionally well around the world?
I do. I saw that question, so I was ready for it. Thanks,
Nice.
Thanks, Blair. I think, I mean, there's tons of examples, but I think the key word there was surprising. I think if we look to airports generally, we can see the development over the last 10 years or so, really focusing on food and drink and making food and drink a really important part of the airport experience. Certainly extending not only spending within the airport, but also celebrating, you know, where that airport's positioned geographically and the types of taste and providers within those regions. But I think by extension, if we look at airlines, I know, you know, on the domestic front here in Canada, we've got an airline, Air North, that does phenomenal food and beverage as part of their service, you know, pouring local wines and you know, making fresh baked cookies while you get on these warm cookies. And you're in an airplane and you take away this amazing food experience. And you see that, you know, with different airlines all over the world. I think another kind of different example, and the reason why we're looking to focus primarily on adventure food and culture, you know, around these integrations. If we look at something like the Lebanese or the Lebanon Mountain Trail, I should say, that's a trail. It's under 300 miles. There's 75 or 80 towns on that trail, and it's a trail that you go to for adventure, to do trekking. But I connected with the lady who worked with the grandmothers and the little ladies in all of these towns along the trail to make their food statements a meaningful part of that trekker's experience, and kind of work with them in capacity development and servicing visitors. And now you can go on the Lebanon Mountain Trail and have these phenomenal homemade food experiences that make, you know, connect you closer to the land, the individuals that populate all these amazing towns. So those are kind of two, you know, out of the box more examples.
Thanks, Trevor. I've got a kind of double part question for you, Brenda. So one that came in is, what are the largest groups that you can handle, or does that depend on the place or the host that you're working with?
Yeah, very much so. I guess over the years, I've developed a ever-expanding spreadsheet with the basics of capacity of you know, how many people, you know, how many people businesses feel comfortable providing to. And actually, oftentimes, you know, things change, like the experience there with Sasha. It started off with just a couple of people, maybe up to 4, and then she got a bigger kitchen table and it was up to 6. And then actually she converted a barn like Ailsa did, and we had a group there from Harmon's, a grocer's business in the States, who brought across 45 people. But for the most part, what I love to do is kind of around about the 6 to 10 mark, 6 to 12 mark. That's I think where I'm able to give the best, and I think as well, the businesses are perhaps able to give the best kind of
one-to-one connection attention. Exactly with the guests. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That seems like
but absolutely number. The host decides. You know, the host decides. Yeah. I just ask, how many can you accommodate, and we take it from there.
Great. Well, the other question I was going to ask you is, what's your most memorable Highlands and Islands food and drink tourism experience? What's the one that really sticks out?
Oh my, you're asking me for one. that's a tough one. That is a tough one.
Or a few. Give us a few.
I think
really
I'll give you one. I'll give you one. I think the biggest one for me, it's involving then the children in that story with the integration with food. I took my two nephews up to the Northwest Highlands. We stayed on a little island, a private island, where the fisherman and his wife and his children lived. We went out on the seafood boat. We lifted langoustines and velvet crabs out the water. We also lifted a tiny little seahorse, which Lackey, my nephew, still remembers to this day. And this has got to be about 2013 this happened. But, you know, then we got the lovely story of the fisherman. We were out on a lovely day. We came back in, we took the produce, we went back to our little cabin, we cooked it. And, you know, for the first time, my little nephew, who was 6 at the time, is eating langoustines and absolutely loves them. And looking back still at those photographs, it's just such a beautiful memory. But there's so many great ones, to be honest. But ones where you really get to, where you get the people connect, for me, that's the most important part.
And it just leaves these lasting memories, you know, that they'll have for the rest of their lives. And I think all of you, all three of you, have spoken about how that is such an important thing when delivering any experience. And it can be something to us or in our day-to-day businesses. It might seem really run-of-the-mill to the person that's the host, but actually it can be so profound and impactful for the guests. And it's amazing to see those little moments, because as you've just explained there, Brenda, that's going to stick with you as well as the guests. So we've got quite a lot of questions coming in thick and fast, which is lovely to see. So Fiona's asking, what do you think it will take for Scotland to be one of the top tourism destinations for food tourism, and how realistic is that? I don't know, does anyone want to jump in? That's quite a tough question to answer, but do you want to go for that, Trevor?
Yeah, why not? I like the big questions. I think it's an important question. What is it going to take? It's going to take every visitor experience, as I was kind of hoping to drill home in my presentation. Every visitor experience needs to be, you know, saturated with food and drink, regardless of the visitor experience. If we're looking to really, you know, increase that, you know, the pence on the pound in terms of spend on local food and drink, it's to make, you know, it's just all encompassing, that it doesn't matter why you're coming or where you're going across Scotland. And to do that, it's to celebrate the breadth and diversity of the amazing tastes and these taste experience across the nation. That's just as important. And really, you know, connecting people to Brenda's point, and you know, what Ailsa was really demonstrating is what's happening at these places, because that's going to, you know, make that real more enriching experience and that memory take place, and that's where you're going to get, you know, referrals, but also repeat visitation to explore different places.
Perfect, fantastic. We've got another interesting question coming from Currie. So she's got a new distillery business, and as a new business, what's the best way to engage with the travel trade? Is it trade shows, other events, or going direct? Do you have anything maybe on, Brenda, that you want to suggest on that for a new business that's trying to engage in that
either
space?
or. Yeah, either or. I mean, the trade shows are you know, were great for me. Right at the start, I took the plunge, and I'd only been going for about 2 months, and I took a stand actually at Visit Scotland Expo, and it was a great experience. But travel trade, yes, of course, any of the events you can attend, just to meet people. But a lot of times it's just people to people, isn't it? You know, it's human to human. It's just that connection that oftentimes is there, or someone speaking to someone else, and that happens. But I think both, you know, I think everybody that is passionate about food and drink in our country, you know, wants to do the very best. And I think your nose naturally takes you to these people, or certainly that's been my experience, you know. So both.
Yeah, there'll be a bit of serendipity. And we've also got Jill, who's got Avagin in Elgin, who's saying that she's going to be starting tours for the first time of her production facility, which is exciting. So she's keen to kind of start engaging in that space. So we've got a specific question for our Canadian presenter. That's you, Trevor. So Gary is wondering, you know, do you feel that people from Canada would come to Scotland for food before history or, you know, kind of heritage in terms of their priority list? Do you think there'd be some guests that would come for food as their main purpose of visit?
Some, yeah. I think it's challenging to say what the. I mean, Visit Scotland, you all would know the drivers of visitation at the moment, but I think the potential is for many to come. And I think if we're hedging our bets on attracting visitors specifically for food and drink. I think that's not a fool's game, but it's a challenge. It's going to be a challenging endeavor. I think it's a really great question. We work with a lot of destinations in rural, remote areas, and I think we'd be negligent in suggesting that they're going to attract visitors specifically for food and drink. But it's better they hedge their bets on making the incidental foodie or the incidental gourmand part of that experience. So really looking at enriching experience, because I think you can have these phenomenal landscapes. Like, would someone come to, I'm located in Ottawa, to this type of place for food and drink? Probably not. So I think it's about coupling, and it's about integration. It's about recognizing that, whatever the driver of demand is, or that generator, use that as the hook, and make sure that then economic impact and visitor experience is enriched through food and drink. And if the driver for demand or the unique value proposition is around food and drink, then work on that. Isle of Arran, where Ailsa is, can as a destination in its own right, put as its value proposition food and drink. It's extremely strong, and similarly at the regional and local levels, you can do that. But I think it's important to recognize where the value is. There's many different types of assets.
Yeah, and the collaboration, is a critical part, because yes, we're a small country, but even smaller in little pockets of regions like we're talking about today, and like Ailsa's experienced as well. There's like real collaboration in some of these communities,
100%,
and feeding referrals to one another, and I think that's just an important part of being in this space.
It's just as good for business to push someone to a complementary business down the road.
Absolutely, yeah. So Ailsa, I've got a question for you. What has been your biggest challenge? Because you had quite a shift from not wanting to have anyone on your farm to suddenly, loads and loads of people who you didn't expect to be on your farm. What's been the biggest challenge in
that? I think probably the fact that, funding is obviously a challenge, because we have, started lots of different things. So we obviously got funding to build our shed, but there's lots of other things that you need to make all that work, just lots of little small things. So there's obviously a financial challenge there, but I think as well, we were farmers, so your focus and knowledge is on agriculture. This requires another set of new skills. So there's been lots of challenges to make sure we're now managing a lot of more staff. We're trying to comply with the rules and regulations. So there's a complete different skill set there to what was required for farming.
It's quite a kind of adjustment to your business model overall. Taking on these different teams and different requirements and legislation, and so it's a kind of adjustment and a pivot, I guess. It sounds like you're in a comfortable position now, though, and the fact that you've got Santa Claus coming, and you've got the Christmas markets, and all these things that you just maybe wouldn't have considered before. And it seems like the shed, anyway, has been a great addition to the farm.
Definitely. I think you've got to really have an open mind and have an interest in these things to do them. But yeah, last year everything was new. So that's all challenges.
Yeah. So we're coming to wrap up in a couple minutes. So do remember to put your answers in the poll, and I'll read that out just before we close up. But let's just take maybe one more question. And I mean, we can all have a stab at that if this question if we want. But what are we most excited about when it comes to the future of food and drink tourism? So if we can all have a kind of a minute each on that, we'll start with you, Brenda.
Well, I think the future is most definitely bright, and I think that we thoroughly deserve now to be on that stage for food. We know within the country, yes, we've got some perhaps dietary choice issues, but at the end of the day, we've got some wonderful food. I'm very much looking forward to now, with the 25 food ambassadors food and drink ambassadors across Scotland, and working together with those to really truly find out what is in your region. Because at the moment, I am a one-woman band. I run Tasting Scotland by myself. I create the itineraries, I deliver the tours, and like Ailsa, I do everything that comes with running an agency. And there's a big skill set there, but the future is bright, most definitely. And I just love the idea of being able to connect across all the regions, with a one kind of person contact that an ambassador hopefully will be able to help me with, you know, because there's a lot to do. There's a lot to do, but excited.
Great, thank you. And just in a word, Ailsa, what do you think? What are you excited about for the future for food and drink tourism?
I think just exactly what Brenda said. I think the future's really, really positive for lots of different reasons. I mean, we've talked about, you know, food, knowledge, travel, but it's mental health, you know, education. It's all, there's lots of potential in all of these areas.
And final word to you, Trevor, before we do the poll and hand back to the main stage.
I think it's just going to bring us closer together. It's going to facilitate more cultural exchange. Food's a conduit to culture, and it's going to allow us to have more meaningful connections, and that's what's needed now and into the future.
Great. Well, thank you all for your fantastic presentations. Really thought-provoking. Thank you to the audience for all their questions. And we're just about to hand back to Elaine Jameson of HIE, who's going to give us this wrap-up and the results of the poll. Here we go. So are the Highlands and Islands ready for rapid food and drink tourism growth? 57.7% of you think yes, and 42.3% think no. So an interesting, thought-provoking piece there. Well, thank you all very much for your attention and for engaging, and yeah, stay safe and hopefully see you all soon.
Thank you.